Hi, this is Patricia Stapler with your Dream Power. My topic today is our brains have been programmed for mediocrity. Have you ever wondered why you can't just stay focused on one thing? Do you find yourself moving from one thing to another and yet never really finishing anything? You see, your brains have been wired this way. And what I want you to do is to help you to change that. I believe that you have greatness inside of you, just waiting to be unleashed into the world. And I also believe that you have more talent and ability than you will ever use. You know, Thomas Edison said that we have more talent, and if we used all the talent and ability we have, we would literally astonish ourselves. Imagine that, astonishing yourselves with your talent and ability. Now, when I say our brains are programmed and we tend to go from one thing to another, I also teach DISC and the personality theories, and there's a lot of different ones out there. DISC is the one that I use just because of the way that you can use word association with each of those letters. And to some extent, if you're a high I in the DISC theory, you are the one that's just shooting ideas all the times. And, you never finish anything because you're just always so excited about those ideas. And if you're a D, you just want to get things done. And you tend to perhaps delegate things out, and maybe you're delegating to the wrong person. If you're a C, you're very conscientious and you want to get things perfect before they're finished. So that's why you maybe don't finish things. And if you're an S personality, well, you tend to be the ones that will get things done. You'll pick up all the pieces that the other ones just can't seem to finish and complete them. And that is part of it. That's not the part I want to focus on today, however. You see, even within our personalities like that, we still have part of our brain that has been very programmed. And to help you stay focused, the first thing you need to do is to make a decision. Sometimes that's the hardest thing. Now, if you want to go on a trip to, let's say, Paris, you first have to decide that you want to go before you're ever going to find the money. And so often people say, I just can't afford to do this, or I can't afford to do that. Well, you've never made a decision. I want you to think of times in your life when you have done something because you made a decision and you found the money. You see, when you make a decision to do something and you implant that idea in your brain, you figure out ways to make it happen. And if you don't figure out those ways, it probably wasn't really a true decision. When you make a decision, you have to step forward. You have to take that step to show that you actually are going to move in that direction. And you have to have a sense of confidence. When I look at leaders in many fields, that's what you find, is they are people who were willing to take that step, to go out on a limb perhaps, to get out of their comfort zone and to move forward with an idea that they had decided that they would accomplish. And it takes self-confidence. It takes that image that you believe that you can acquire what it is you want. But as you're thinking that decision, here's something I want you to consider. Who's depending on you? Do you have family members that are depending on you to be the one to make the decision, to move forward, to accomplish that greatness? And realize that when you make that decision, it's going to require self-management. You're going to have to become disciplined. Now, sometimes we think of discipline as something that's bad, perhaps. If you've been disciplined as a child or you were disciplined at school. But I want you to think of discipline as giving yourself a command and following it. So now this is disciplining yourself, that if you're going to do something, you're going to get it accomplished. Have you ever heard that busy people are the ones who get things done? There's a lot of truth to that. If you want something done, give it to somebody who's busy. Why is that? Well, because busy people have learned how to discipline themselves in order to get something accomplished. Just the other day, I was away all day, and yet I knew I had to get something accomplished that evening. And it was very important that I get it finished. I had a deadline. Now, it was somewhat of a self-imposed deadline, but nonetheless, it was a deadline that I felt I needed to follow through with. And I got home rather late at night, and I went right up to my computer and I started working. And I was working there a little over 2 hours to accomplish the goal of completing this. And it was way past the time I usually go to bed. And finally, my husband came up and he was wondering what I was doing. I was like, I have to get this done. You see, that was part of my discipline. I told somebody I was going to get this accomplished, and I told them when I was going to do it. And I've always lived by that rule of when you say you're going to do something, you do it. That's part of my self-discipline. And it's much easier to let yourself down than to let somebody else down. So often I will give somebody a deadline because then that means that I will get it accomplished. So I will promise to do that for them more than I would absolutely promise to do it for myself, which is just a sad state of affairs. But again, our brains have been programmed. So you do have to bring that discipline, to bring that focus into your life. Now, I want to tell you what's sabotaging your effort to accomplish and to stay focused. You see, often I talk about the two parts of our brain, our conscious brain and our subconscious brain. And our subconscious mind, because I shouldn't say brain, it's really mind. Our subconscious mind is where we have our habits stored. And we have those habits stored in groups that we call paradigms. And our paradigms reflect what we believe in and what our self-beliefs are. And we have paradigms that are part of our self-image, which are very strong and have been formed since the time we were an infant, usually by somebody else. We have some paradigms that are generational, that just seem to be genetically stored in our minds. We have paradigms that we have formed, perhaps about what we think we can and cannot do, which may be true or may not be. Whatever those paradigms are, they also control our habits. Now, sometimes this is very good. For instance, when you get up in the morning, you probably have a routine that you just automatically go into. It's like being on autopilot of a plane. The pilot puts the plane on autopilot and it just goes. And they're not really flying it, they're monitoring, but it's pretty much going on its own. Well, that's what you do. It's like being a robot. We are a robot to these automatic movements that we have. So we get ready in the morning, we go through a routine. This was made very clear to me a number of years ago when I set up a certain routine that I got ready in the morning, not realizing that my husband was listening for my hair dryer. Well, one day I got up and I thought, why do I do this in this certain order? Because I started to realize my order of putting makeup on and drying my hair was maybe not the best order. So I switched it around that day. And all of a sudden he flies in to get his shower and he says, I'm always listening for your hair dryer. I said, oh, I changed things around. And he was almost late to work. You see, I didn't realize that we can predict other people that were around for a while by their habits. And that's why they're so ingrained. Well, that habitual thinking pretty much steers 90 to 95, some people even say up to 97% of your day. Now, some of you might say, well, that's not true because I meet with different people every day and I have different conversations. Yes. However, is what you're doing so different from one day to the next? Are you going different places every day? Are you, interacting in different ways? If you start to look at what actually you're doing, you'll see that much of your day is habitual. I remember when I was employed that I would drive to my work, and sometimes I would get to the parking lot and I would think to myself, did I go through a red light? Did I maybe not stop for a school bus on the way? Because you just put yourself in gear and you just go. Maybe you've done this. Sometimes you get in such a habit that you miss the exit because it was a different exit than you usually take off a highway. You see, our brains are very habitual, and those habits are stored in that subconscious. And so if we're going to really change our lives, we have to learn how to change those habits. Now, the part of the brain that wants to also keep us in mediocrity, because actually the habits will too, because they're trying to keep you safe and keeping you doing the same thing over and over again. Well, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, that's what Albert Einstein said was insanity. And it really is. And those habits are keeping us in living a life of mediocrity. The other thing is keeping us in living a life of mediocrity is what we call that chasing brain, or the monkey brain, where we're always chasing shiny objects and we're looking for something that's teasing us, something that's going to give us pleasure, something that's going to give us an immediate thrill of some sort. And so we're chasing after things. And that constant chase is about the other 5% of our brain. If our habitual robot brain is 95%, this chasing brain is about the other 5%. And it keeps us all stirred up and not getting anywhere. Sometimes being like that hamster on a wheel, just going around, 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 never getting any place, but you're chasing, always moving. Now, the least powerful part of our brain is actually the most important part. I've heard this called the sage brain. It's that the calming part of our brain. Now, if we've already used 95% and then the monkey brain's that are 5%, what's left for the sage brain? Not a whole lot. And yet, this is the part I want to talk to you about strengthening. This part of our brain is actually what makes human beings different than any other animal in the animal kingdom. Because as far as we know, we are the only ones with this capability. Now, that calming part of our brain is where we go and do inside work, where we're introspective of what's going on, and we use our thinking, and we use these 6 magical powers that are our intellectual faculties. And this is where we start to really delve into those 6 faculties, like our intuition. You see, everything's vibrating in the world. Everything's full of energy. And you're picking up on that energy, which is part of the monkey brain problem, because we're picking up on it and we're going. When we can pick up on that intuition to our benefit, and we can start to use some of our other skills like reasoning, which is another one of those magical powers, and we can start to really think, is this the best thing for me? Is this chase the one that I need to take today? Or can I put that chase in the back burner and just keep it in mind for later on? But if we start to reason, we will quit just going after everything that comes down the pike, so to speak. So we have the intuition, we have a reason, we have our imagination. Napoleon Hill, in his book, Think and Grow Rich, talked about the imagination being the most marvelous, miraculous power ever discovered. And you build that image in your imagination of what you want. And see, when you can supplant that into your subconscious, because it's your subconscious that will actually move you into action. And when you can get that idea implanted into your subconscious, the beautiful imagination of the life that you want, then you'll figure out the ways to make it happen. And then we also have memory. You see, memory can be for past experience, but what about those future experiences? And Lewis Carroll, in the story Through the Looking Glass, the queen asked Alice about her tomorrow. And Alice responds, what did you do tomorrow? The queen says, and Alice says, tomorrow hasn't happened yet. And the queen talks about what's a pretty sad memory that can only think in one direction. You see, can we use our memory and use that imagination to build a future memory of the way we want it to happen? See, I would suggest that we do that all the time. We're just not aware. And awareness is everything. So we have the intuition, the imagination, we have the reason, we have the memory, and then we have to look at perception. Perception is reality. You've heard that before, I'm sure. Can you put yourself in somebody else's position so that you can perceive a situation from another point of view? You see, when you can do that, that's how you build better relationships with people. That's how you can impact more lives, when you can see other situations, not just the one that's right in front of your face. And it also gives you the opportunity to be more understanding, because we don't all think alike. Thank goodness we don't all think alike. What kind of world would this be if we were all mechanical robots thinking the same thing all the time? That's why we love diversity of thought. And then the other intellectual power that you have is the will. Now, not willpower, but will. Because when you learn to focus on the one thing that you want and hold that in your mind, you hold that with your will. So I hope this gives you some ideas. What you need to do is to start going inside of you. And the first move I would make is to look at that link below. I have events. I have a calendar. I want you to reach out. Right now, we're getting ready for the Stop Chasing Shiny Objects Summit, where I've invited some great speakers to help us do just this, and where I'm going to be talking in more depth than I have today on how to get your mind to focus on what's really important in your life, and to get you to the point where you're not wasting time and energy and money on things you're not ready for, and to get alignment with who you are, what you want, and what you need. So I would suggest that you go ahead and register for that summit today so that you can be a part of it. And if you do the upgrade to the VIP, it's a very small amount, and you'll get all the videos and some very special bonus gifts that will help you to get to that point where you are focused. So I hope to see you May 10th through 12th at the Stop Chasing Shiny Objects Summit. This is Patricia Stepp with your Dream Power. Be the magic in your dreams.